welcome to another exciting episode of Riding Through the Unknown. I'm your host, Michael, and I am joined tonight with a guest who, if you are aware and in the community, I'm sure you've seen her. She is an incredible host, an incredible person. I am so honored and blessed to introduce you all to the one, the only, the amazing, incredible Eve Howard.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you so much, miigwech, which means thank you in Ojibwe. I'm actually indigenous. I know I claim indigenous warrior. I'm actually an enrolled member of the White Earth Band of Ojibwe, and that's right outside of Minnesota. Most of my family came from Canada and came down through Turtle Island and then kind of found a home here in Minnesota. So I'm actually enrolled. So I am exactly what I claim.
That's incredible, and thank you for honoring that side and bringing awareness to that.
Oh yeah, I've actually had many recalls and dreams since I was a child of being with my own people and being kept in this program and playing these games, but they weren't really games. There were basically ways to work with our abilities, and most of it was like through the third eye and types of exercises and being on a lot of missions. I remember being on missions as young as like age 8, age 9.
That's incredible to have that much memory recall.
Well, these were things that I had memory of waking up and having. One of the most traumatic one was we were sent into, we were supposed to go into this warehouse and bring out these men that were holding a couple of hostages. And they asked us, these people don't have firearms. And so by goodwill, we were not to bring in ours to show good faith in doing this and bringing them out. So we walked in. I remember walking all the way to the back of the warehouse. And it was like something caught my eye. I turned around and there was like these shelves, just like in Costco. There was like really high shelves, and there was a man standing there, and he had an automatic firearm. And I remember we were wearing something because I could hear someone yelling in my ear, and they were yelling, abort, retreat. So they spotted a weapon. So we'd all turned around and we started running towards the end of it. I remember seeing the doors. I remember seeing light outside the doors and getting about halfway there. And I was hearing a firearm going off behind me. And the next minute I took a bullet in my spine and I fell face down on the floor, on the ground. And I remember just like withering in pain, and someone had grabbed me. Two people had picked me up and they started pulling me. And then when I came to, I was back in my bed, in my bedroom. I know it was before the age of 10. And I was laying there. It took about 10 minutes, but I could still feel the pain of being shot and getting shot in the spine, which is really funny because like years down the road, I ended up having 4 back surgeries, and I ended up having a spinal fusement in L4 and L5, which is right where I was shot.
Wow, that's incredible. And I can share with you, I can relate on the waking up scenario, because there were times like I would wake up and I would turn my head and all of a sudden there'd be like blood on the pillow. And I'd be like checking my ear, checking my neck, face, arms, and everywhere, and going, I'm not cut anywhere, but there's blood on the pillow case. Don't know where it came from. So I can relate to having, unusual, waking up to unusual experiences. And now I wonder, was it my subconscious trying to warn me away from trying to figure out what these dreams were?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. I know I've spoken on quite a few shows and including my own regarding this was my parents. I had woke up, it was a Saturday morning. I got up. My father and my mother were in the kitchen. As I walk down the hallway, I forego the bathroom to see what they're doing. And I walk in just in time to have my father kind of lean over the counter because he's having back pain. And my mother just kind of runs her hand down his back and she's like, right here. And the moment she does that, this little door opens and this vial of green, looks like kind of plasma type gas. It's a vial of it anyway, and is immediately, as soon as it leaves his body, I knew he was going to lunge for me. And sure enough, he turned, saw me, and he jumped for me. And I turned around and I jumped down the stairs. And I ended up on the landing down by the door. And then I ended up getting myself stuck down in the basement. But it was like Groundhog's Day because it was like I woke up again and I'm back in my bed. And I was like, this just happened because I remember it. And I got up and my parents were in the kitchen, but this time I went in the bathroom and I was kind of scared. I was scared of my father for a while after that. Um, but that just kind of stuck with me. Whatever that green stuff that was in his back was keeping him from, doing harm to me.
Wow. And yeah, that's kind of, I could see as a kid seeing that going, how do you process that to make sense of what you're seeing and being like, okay, everything's okay. It's like, no, it's like as a kid, I can see no way where a kid could look at that scenario and go, it's okay, I'm safe, I'm protected. It's like, no.
No, my father was really good at shielding his abilities from me, but one of the things that I noticed that he was able to do, he was an excellent tracker. Um, and he had the ability to be a telepath as well. Um, what really helped, I guess that's one of the things that they always kind of pushed on me as well, was to be able to I know the person that I was partnered with in the program, we were able to speak to each other without comms, so I know that we were telepathic.
And I wonder with the programs because of what training we have and how it bleeds through into our normal lives. I amazed a friend of mine, and we were at St. Augustine at the mission, Fort Castillo, I think they call it,
Mhm.
and they were doing the firing of the cannon. And I'm sitting there holding up my phone, recording this, and they fire the cannon. And you see everyone jumps. Everyone's like getting hysterical and going like, "Oh my god, that was so loud and everything." And my friend looks at me, and we go back and watch the footage, and he looks at me and he says, "How did you not jump? How did you not even move a muscle?" And I'm like, and I couldn't explain it then. And I was like, I don't know. I guess I just didn't sense danger or anything. But now I kind of have to sit there and wonder, is that programming that bled through? And it was like it just didn't phase me.
Yeah, I know some of the training that I went through would be considered pretty barbaric. Uh, there was this strange. I thought it was like a flagpole, um, but there was a seat at the very top, and what it was is we had to get up to the top and sit in the seat, and then everybody else would try to get you unseated, and then they would take over the seat. So, but the thing was is that as many people that jumped on the flagpole, it would also bend it. So we run the risk of if they fell off, it was like I said, it was pretty barbaric.
And it's interesting you mention that, because when I was on a cruise, we stopped in Mexico on the western side. I think they call it the Mexican Riviera area. I think it was Mazatlan, if I remember right, and I'm sure I'll be corrected if I've got the wrong city, but they had people who would climb up on poles like you're saying, and some would be seated on the top, some would just be hanging on, and their objective was to sway and dance on these poles. And I was like, when you were sharing that, I was like, I watched that in Mexico, but they weren't like trying to get each other off. But it's like, it's interesting. It's the exact, almost same style description.
That's funny because I'd never seen that ever, other than my recall of that memory. So hearing you actually validate that, is saying that there is something like that, makes me feel a lot better. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Now,
I know I have some memories of certain people that my father worked for the BIA, which is the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and we lived on many reservations, moved around a lot. And I think it was, I had, was it a show? I can't remember who it was. And it was a validation that a lot of the reservations, they have a lot of the deep under earth type military installments on these reservations. And there are quite a few people that are very quick to we know about them. We just, we don't say anything.
well, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was studying cultures, and I kind of did a side study from my anthropology courses of the Native American tribes, and I only use that term so that people understand I'm encompassing the entire area of North America, not specific ones. But the one thing I found in common amongst majority of their stories from the beginning times was either they came from the dirt, which would be inner earth and what we understand now, or they said they were created from the stars, which now we know means hybrids or star races. And so it's interesting how you, and when I say you, I mean the indigenous population, learned to encode that history and keep it in, and kind of in an odd way pulled the wool over everyone's eyes. And you're like, yeah, we're still keeping our identity, even though you think we've lost it.
Yeah, I mean, even though my parents were brought up in residential boarding schools, uh, I was still very drawn to the traditional ways of my people. And the funny thing is, before I forget, we call ourselves Anishinaabe. And I've actually had that translated through a medicine man, and it was translated as light lowered from the stars. So I'd assume that the Ojibwe people, the Anishinaabe people, and probably very many other tribes came from the stars. So were created, brought down here, a created race, very different, because they had talked about some of the blood is very different from a lot of the other people on this planet. So
And I'm about to probably lay some more validation on you because I have memory growing up, and I cannot associate it to a specific tribe or a book or anything. But my first memory and knowledge of stars was the Pleiadian constellation, and that it was seven sisters, and one fell in love with a Native American warrior, and during, I believe it's wintertime, there will be six stars visible in the Pleiadian constellation because she came down to be with her husband because they got married. And then in the spring, I think it was, or summer, there's seven stars because she returns to the heavens. And so it's interesting when you say the means comes down from the stars. That I don't know where, if I read that or just have memory of witnessing that, but yeah.
I've never studied anything with some of the fables that go along with the constellations. But 2 years ago, I had this. I was meditating. I was told I sometimes I get these things where they tell me, you have to meditate. You're going to be getting this information. So as I've gotten older, I noticed that some of my meditations will turn into naps. So as I was meditating, I fully came aware, and had recall of I was being brought to this. It was very rocky terrain, and I was sitting in the back seat, and there was no driver in the car. It was just driving me into this cave. And as I got to the cave, I heard this voice. This is the cave of the seven sisters. And I'm being driven into this huge cavern, and it's like big, like two football stadiums stacked on top of each other. That's how big it is. And there are seven mini caves or cave entrances carved into the inner wall. And beside each entrance, there's a stone spire. So there's two outside each entrance, and each spire has a torch. So there's 14 spires, 14 torches, seven entrances. And that's what the voice told me, that this was the cave of the seven sisters. So I've tried so hard to look up all the information. I've come up with the Pleiades. I've also I think it wasn't Len Keston had in his book. It was a long time before the Pleiades. They had originally called the Ryan constellation was the seven sisters, which made up the two shoulders, the three belt, and then the two at the bottom. So that was seven. And then somehow it ended up transferring to the Pleiades constellation with the seven sisters. So I don't know which one is correct, but I think that's what we talked about earlier about hearing two different things. And I think I do a lot of where I actually do psilocybin. And I was told during one of my recent trips that the mark of intellectual beings are having an open mind and hearing both sides to be able to make your own, creative thought process and make your own decision on things.
I could agree with that, and not to go off topic, but I want to kind of sidestep something because I want to bring awareness to something in your bio that I feel like people might benefit from knowing, and that is that you are an Usui Reiki Master and a shamanic healer of Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about?
Ever since as young as I could remember, I could feel pain as heat, and I could feel it on people. even though other people couldn't feel it. Um, I went to see my medicine man because I was having problems with my back, and also had someone had put bad medicine on me, so I went to see him to have it removed. And I started talking to him about some of the things that I could do with feeling people's pain and being able to. Um, it's like it's like I step into their shoes, their moccasins, whatever. I step into them and I'm able to figure out where they hurt and why. Like I'll feel it. So then once I figure that out, then I can work on them and be able to, uh, heal. So but one of the things that I struggled with is I would keep that in. I didn't know how to release that energy. So I figured if I went in, I was able to speak to a Reiki master and she would be able to help me because my medicine man said he was going to help me heal and figure out how to let loose that energy, but he passed away. So I wasn't able to find anybody that I felt I could trust to be able to teach me how to do this. So I met somebody. She was amazing, and I ended up doing level 1, level 2, and level 3 with her. So I've reached the highest I can go, and I'm able to let loose that negative. Because I guess I take in people's pain. I'm also an empath too, so that kind of makes sense. But I wasn't able to let go of it. You know, um, we have all these beautiful gifts, but they don't come with instructions.
And what's kind of interesting, and like I mentioned backstage that I might use the word transparency, is as I validated something for you, you just validated something for me. Because as a Reiki master, I would see myself sometimes working on someone on the outside and going, this isn't going to work, this isn't right. And I see myself flip and enter, and then it's like use my energy to fix whatever or release whatever needed to be released and then leave. And I was like, I thought I was the only one. And I was like, is that not how that's supposed to be done? And so when you said that, I was like, finally, somebody else who does that. So I know I'm not doing it wrong.
And sometimes I have pain and I'm like, I will search for the person that has this pain because it's like I need to work on you so I can sleep. So and I've actually said that to a couple of people before. Um, I think one of the first things after I graduated level 2, I graduated Wednesday, and that Friday I was heading to Arizona and I was going to visit some friends that were out there. And I happened to look on Facebook, and there was a friend of mine that was on Facebook, and he was talking about that his wife had been placed in a coma for 3 weeks and had been on a respirator. She had contacted COVID, and they were going to remove her from the ventilator. Or ventilator, yes, ventilator, and take her off and allow her to pass on. And he was just frantic. He was asking for prayers. He begged the doctors, please just give my wife a couple of days. He didn't know what to do, and it was just like my guides will sometimes, it's like they nudge me and it's just like, say something. So I contacted him. I had gone to school with him, so I mean I knew him. We hadn't spoken in many years, and I said I'd like the chance. I explained I asked him if he knew what Reiki was, and he said, yes, I do. And I was like, well, I was just, graduated, and now I can work on people. And I want you to know that I've been doing this for a while. I just took the session because I wanted to work for this company, and they really wanted me to have some certification. It wasn't just enough to be, a shamanic healer. I needed more credentials, I guess. So um, I went to, I think it was that Friday evening or late afternoon, she was in a coma, and we're asked, to get permission from the person that you work on them. I wasn't sure how to go about it because she was, not conscious. So her husband gave me permission, but it just didn't feel right to me. So I started meditating. I meditated for about a good while before I felt like I was very close to her energy, and I was in this dark area, and I called her name. I, I don't know what I was expecting, but all of a sudden I hear this voice say yes. And I explained who I was, and I said, I went to high school with your husband, and he's asked me, to help heal, and I just need your permission before I go ahead. Do I have your permission? And she said, okay. And she was very tentative. What are you doing here? Type tone in her voice. And I started to work on her, and it was about half-hour session. Um, Ended it, and disconnected from her. Um, the next morning, as I think we're right, just about ready to hit Montana, I get this phone call from her husband, and he's like, I don't know what you did, but I'm going to be forever grateful. She's awake. And the doctors don't know how. Um, so it was a moment for me. I ended up stopping through and visiting them. She was finally out of the hospital by the time that I started my way back home. So I did get to go and visit with her. We have pictures and stuff, but it's just a place in my heart for her, that was the first person, who believed in me and gave me permission. And, she's here today
No, that's
because of it.
beautiful. And it kind of, in a way, makes me think about, because Reiki, the hardest thing for people that I witnessed going through the classwork was being, one, just a conduit, not controlling it or anything, and two, that they were not, having struggling with being attached to what comes of it. Are they doing it right? Are they doing it wrong? Getting in their head, so to speak. And I noticed, for me, I didn't really have that. It's like, at first I'd be like, well, I'm sensing this, but am I really sensing this? And then I'd be like, okay, let's see where this goes. And being open to it. And I wonder, like, you, in a way, not, and I'm not going and saying, this is programming coming through. I'm actually going to go a different route and say, is this because we're hybrid star beings, that we can connect to the energy, understand the energy more, and it like bleeds through our DNA, and they're like, the body just knows. And so we just have a natural knowing and a knack to it.
I think, myself, everyone is capable of being connected and being as one. We just don't do it. We have our little bubbles, and we stay in our bubbles, and it keeps us from really connecting with each other. I don't, I kind of shy away from, just saying that, with my abilities, I feel like I'm, above everybody. We're all the same. We all have the potential, and it's all in our DNA, whether it's unlocked or it's still,
Dormant.
buried.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's there. Everybody.
Yeah. And
There are just
I
some
didn't
that
mean
are
to
just like,
sound
oh,
like,
no, 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 no. I'm no, I didn't think that at all. I was just, saying that everybody's capable of it, and we're all capable of feeling that connection with each other that you feel when you're working on somebody, when you're connecting and you're healing. I think I, I don't think that I channel that much. I feel like I like to call myself like the charger that, you know, you plug into somebody and you plug into that universal energy, and I'm able to charge and hold that charge, and being able to use whatever abilities that, you know, that we all have, that I for some reason are a lot more prevalent with me than say others. So I don't know. I guess that's just the way that I look at it.
No,
But
and that I love how you said that, because I think a lot of times that's what some of us are trying to say, but it comes out like I was taught in an organization, it comes out sideways. People take it wrong, and it's like, no, that's not what I was saying. That's not what I was meaning. But it's like, it's too late. The ship has sailed, and they're like, no, this is what you said. And it's like, that's how you heard it, but that's not what I said.
right, you know, you can say one sentence in a room full of people, and everybody is going to hear that different. So I mean, don't take it upon yourself. You know, there are some people that are just so much better at reflecting, you know, and hearing something and saying, well, this is about me. You know, I mean, it may not even have anything to do with them, but you know, they think it does. So I mean, that's not your fault. That's something that other people need to work on.
Well, thank you for that. And yeah, I struggle with that because even as a kid, I would always like, I was not the reactive kid. And I have memories that like don't make sense how I have them. And we actually coined the phrase, and I think I started it, and it kind of took on in our family as a little humorous joke, was I was floating around, because I would have memories of conversations people in my family had before I was born. And I could read and say, well, when you guys talked about this, and they're like, how did you know we talked about that? And so I would be like, well, I guess I was hovering around or floating around. And so it became like a little joke of, if I had that happen again, they go, oh, were you hovering around?
I don't have I do have recalls of being wherever I was in the very beginning. It was very cold, it was very dark. But I do remember seeing the sun coming through my surrogate's belly, and being able to, you know, turn towards that light, whereas, you know, before I was in darkness. Um and then one of the very, very earliest memories that I have was I was in like this, it's almost like a light gray wall, almost like a concrete wall, and then the windows are like very, very high. They're very up, like almost to the ceiling, and they're not very big. And I'm laying on this cold metal table, and I look over to my left, and I see the windows, and I see, as I'm looking out the windows, it's absolute darkness. There's no light, there's no street lights, there's no anything. There's not even any stars. It's just complete darkness. And that was my very first memory that I remember before being in my crib, and, you know, my mother putting me down for a nap or anything like that. So I do have memories in the of being an infant, being a child, baby, um, age 2, age 3. Age 3 was a situation that happened when I was living on my mother's reservation and visiting my uncle's house. I wandered away. We went out to go look at the mother pig had piglets, so we went out to go see the babies. And I wandered away. I don't know. It was almost like somebody was calling me. I remember it. Like, I remember being there. I remember standing on the fence, looking through the slats, the piggies, the baby piglets. I remember turning and looking towards the lake, which was behind the house, and walking that way. And then turning, there was like a tree, like a break in the trees that was almost like a path that ran parallel around the lake. And I walked that way, and I'm standing there, and there was like a kind of like a little grassy knoll that turned to sand at the very top and then went down to the beach area. There were like empty reeds. There were little tiny white perfect shells. Um, there was all kinds of like the half, what are they, mussels? They're clams. They're fresh water. And I remember standing there, and I'm looking out, and I'm seeing, just, I'm not looking at the lake. I'm just seeing something that's there, but I don't see it. And I hear my sister scream for me. And my mother must have sent her down to come and find me. And she comes over and she grabs me, and we leave. Um, my mother had told the story so many times that it was almost like it was, it was very strange to me. But during that time when I was standing there, and I had talked to my sister a couple summers ago, and I said, I've heard this story from our mom. I want to hear it from you. When I was 3 and I explained it, tell me what you saw. She said, well, when I came and I hit that path between the trees, I saw you standing there. So I start jogging towards you. And as I start jogging towards you, I see this man standing there in front of you. She said, but as I got closer, I realized that he was almost had kind of grayish skin, and he had no body hair, and his eyes were very large, and his mouth, he didn't really have lips, and he just kind of had like 2 little nostril holes. It wasn't much of a nose, and she doesn't remember much for ears. And she said at first I thought he was naked, but then I realized he was wearing like a suit that was very, very close to his skin. And it was almost like the same color as his skin. But she said he was standing there looking at you, and he was smiling, and you were smiling back at him. And I ran up, and she's like, I grabbed your arm, and I told him, get away, you can't have her. But I didn't say it out loud. I was thinking it, he was an adult, and you don't say anything. We were brought up not to say anything to adults. So she's thinking this in her head, and he turns and he looks at her like she spoke to him. And then he turned around and he ran away. But she said he didn't. It was funny. She said he ran away, but his feet never touched the ground, and he was gone. And I've actually had that being show up a couple of times in my life, and other people around me have seen this being, a lot of things that happen on the reservations, and a lot of people don't talk about it, and I understand why they don't talk about it. It's just that I've come into knowing a little bit more information on why these beings are there, and why they make contact, and why they made contact with me at such a young age.
So, do you want to share some of what you think of that, or do you want to keep that to yourself for now?
No, they followed me through most of my life. We ended up moving from there and moving to another reservation. My father got a job at a different reservation. We got a house. We were by a lake. And it was funny because my dad said he would see UFOs outside my window. And I recall going to sleep at night, and my mother said I had night terrors. And it was always the same night terrors. She said I would wake her up screaming. She would jump up, she would run in my room, and it was always the same thing. She was like, I could have bet $5 every single time. It was always, there's a man in my closet. She asked me, do you remember that? And I was like, no, I don't remember that. She goes, do you remember what he looked like? You remember anything? And I'm like, no, I don't. I wish you would have asked me at that time. I might have, had some recollection, but it's almost like the memory was just kind of yanked from my head. But I would go to sleep at night, and my mother had this special nightlight, and it was plugged into the wall, and it would shine up on the wall. And it was like I would go into this trance staring at the light. And then I was brought into like almost this very unusual I guess it would be like a smart board, but it was like see-through because I could still see the wall and still be in my room. But it was almost like an interactive classroom. And they would show me symbols and formulas and equations. And I would have to sit here and go through every single one of them. So I don't know what it was that they had such an interest. I don't really feel like I was highly intelligent. I don't know, but I mean, what exactly is intelligence anyway? The ability to memorize books.
Not in my opinion.
I mean, they put you in school and they tell you you're
Yeah,
smart if you can, remember everything that they teach you, but that's not knowledge. That's not the real knowledge.
yeah.
So
So
I
I
don't
would
know.
I would say that's maybe intelligence, but that's not wisdom.
Yes,
Wisdom
there
comes
you go.
from seeking your own truth and answers.
There you go. And that's what I feel like I've been doing like the past 4 years is seeking my own wisdom. And realizing that, I was also used in these programs, but a lot of the indigenous population were kept together until probably we were teens. I do remember they tried to match me with this little blonde-haired boy. He had blue eyes. I think I was 8. And I don't know if that's just like memories from Montauk because he and I would like create after everybody would go to bed, we would create like these fairy tales and they would become very real. Where like the carriage would become very real where we could crawl into the carriage and nobody could see us. We would disappear. It was very, very weird. But otherwise I remember being with kept with my own people. And it wasn't until I was about 15 when my mother moved to Colorado. And then I had memories of um, going somewhere. It was like something to do with the swimming pool at our high school. And actually another it seemed like everybody that was in that high school had abilities now that I look back at it. Um like one of my friends that I consider to be a very close friend, and he was also the one that his wife was very sick and in a coma. But he and I have talked about at our high school at length and said that the swimming pool was a very unusual building. And he said he had a lot of memories. I don't know if he's okay with me saying it. I'm not saying his name, but we talked about where we would like dream about the pool. So I don't know if that was just some sort of a weird portal somewhere. Like I said, we weren't that far from Cheyenne Mountain, so um, I would probably say that. And I've had like memories of being in the Denver airport quite a bit, but I've only
And
been there twice.
it's interesting you mentioned Montauk because I had one partial memory come through, and I was in a hot tub and I put my head underwater, which I rarely do now because it causes my ears to fill with wax, and that's a pain to get all that wax out.
Mhm.
But something told me, and it's like I just couldn't stop myself from going in the water. And I hear what sounds, you expect to hear the jets and the water pumps for the hot tub, but I didn't. It's like I was hearing water going through tubes. And I was like, where am I? What is this? And all of a sudden, I feel at one point it's like I'm underwater. And when I stuck my arm above the water partially, I quickly put it back under the water because it like felt like it burned my skin. And
Mhm.
so I was like, what is going on? And then finally I got out of the water and I'm walking around and I see like filter pipes going, no real color, everything is all the same color. And I open this door, and there's a meeting, and the door is like rushed closed. And when I open it again, I'm like, there's nothing in there. And I was like, ooh. And, this is after I brought my head up and went back under to see what was going on, if I could get more memory. And before I came up above the water the second time, I finally said, look, where am I? And only one word ever that I heard, or any voice that I heard, was a voice just said Montauk.
Wow.
And then I was like flashed back, and I was like in the water, and I was like, ooh, I got to get my head above water. It's been a while since I breathed.
I think I have kind of like a little memory. It wasn't Montauk, but I think I was like 3 or 4. I know I was like in Head Start, so I was in preschool, and we had walked down to this creek that ran from one of the lakes on the reservation. And there was like these little grassy steps there. And so I was going to hop from one little step to the other one. And for some reason, I must have jumped right into that creek. And the thing was, is when you're hopping down and you fall this way, you're going to be face down. Well, I looked down at the bottom of the creek, and there was a portal, like a pretty big portal. And I could see the sky. But that shouldn't be right. I shouldn't have been able to see the sky looking down. And then when my teacher, she said she leaned down, grabbed me by my back of my collar, and pulled me out of the water. So even getting yanked out of the water, I was still face down. So there was no way that I should have been able to see the sky in the creek on the bottom of the bed. So,
Interesting you say that, because I just had a memory of, and I don't think I got it from a movie or video game or anything, but I was having the vision of being a pilot, flying the craft, but being told you can't fly it upside down, because you're going to crash, because you think the sky is downward when it's upward. So you have to always keep the canopy on top.
mm-hmm.
And I have no military training whatsoever now. And so it's like, as you were saying that, it's like all of a sudden that popped in my head, and I was like, why am I seeing someone teaching me to fly this way and never this way?
I don't know. I do have recall, and this would have been probably after Montauk. So I don't know if it's like an altar, like a memory, but I was taken from there, or my altar was taken from there and brought to some school up the Eastern Seaboard. So possibly past New York and maybe even into Canada. But there was like a school, and we learned how to fly. And like one of the things, and this was flying without wings, jetpacks, boots, anything like that. It started out with levitating. And they discovered this when I was about 7 or 8. They had brought me to this. It was supposed to be like a dental office, but I didn't get any work done. But I remember being in the chair. They hooked this mask on my face. And the partition, the walls, it was almost like they used bookcases for walls from each chair. But I remember I started to levitate up, and then I was over the bookcases and flying over all the chairs, and there was nobody in the office. And I do even remember telling him when they came in, I was flying around. And they were like, "Oh, you were you?" But yeah, so and then they kind of developed that, and I do have lots of memories of learning to fly over the Atlantic Ocean, like flying over the ocean, flying over the waves, because sometimes it was, most of the time we were kept under such strict control. So to be able to fly like that and feel the freedom, it was amazing. But I could remember just like feeling like not being able to get up a lot of height or getting, going very fast, but being able to feel like the salt, like the spray hitting me as I was flying over. And it served a purpose too, because if you happen to crash and burn, you're hitting water.
Right.
You're not hitting anything, cement or asphalt or anything like that.
Yeah, but water can be, if you're flying over it, it'll hurt when you smack into it.
Oh, the water was already moving, so I mean, most you would have done was just gotten tossed around by some of the waves. But the whole thing was, most of us. Well, I know I had like a great fear of water since I was like a little kid, and I never could figure out why. My mother, she could not wash my hair because I refused to have her pour, cups of water over my head. I think my father eventually had to put me on the kitchen counter and then, hairdress style, like, pretty much, hold his hand there so I couldn't, the water on my face would traumatize me. So I'm guessing I was probably waterboarded a lot as a child. I remember like Halloween, seeing that big tub of water with all the apples would just put me in a panic attack because I was like, can't do that. I can't do that.
Yeah. I remember seeing the movie Abyss, and they had the helmets, the Navy guys, deep divers, that had the fluid in there. And hearing them say, just relax, your
Breathe.
body will adjust to it, and it'll be like breathing when you were in the womb.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a pool when I was growing up, and I would go under the water and go, if they said this in the movie, and if this is true, is this really possible? And I would find myself being able to take shallow breaths in and out, and it actually felt like I was breathing and felt like I could stay underwater longer. I don't know if I actually was staying underwater longer, but it felt like it.
Yeah, there were special things that a lot of us could do that some of us others could not do, and they struggled with getting me in the water. I remember, I think I had recalls of being in like a troop, so like probably Girl Scouts, and I was sent to this camp, a swim camp, which is really weird because, I mean, I had severe water phobia. So I remembered the name of it and I looked it up, and it's an actual camp in Minnesota. So I'm not as crazy as I look. Just
No,
kidding.
and it's funny how our memories work. Is I was telling my mom one day, and I said, I have all these memories of being underwater and everything. And she goes, well, did you know you used to be afraid of water? We couldn't get you in the water. You'd always be on the edge. And I was like, no. She goes, yeah, your uncle, her brother, grabbed me, put me under the water, and then brought me back up. And she said, after that, you were fine in the water. And I was like, I have no, it's like, I don't remember that. I just remember always being in the water, swimming underwater preferred. I could feel like moving faster underwater. But it's like, yeah, it's funny how our memories like so like erase specific things, and it's like they're made to be so fluid. It's like you don't even question this and going, wait a minute, that's an important thing that my uncle did for me. Why do I have no memory of it? But I remember swimming and being fine in the water.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, actually last weekend went camping and went to the lake and swam. I still have trouble with like getting water on my face, but yeah.
Yeah,
And the water was nice and cold, so and it was such a hot day. It was a place that I had gone when I was a child, so or I had grown up there, so it was really fun to go back and to like, you know, experience all of the things that I experienced as a child because that was I had lived there for many years. I think for about 8 or 9 years. So I kind of like every time I dream about that place. That is my childhood home. Um, but it was weird. I went camped out in the woods. I was just like, I'm going to be totally sporadic about it. I'm not going to make any plans because I didn't want to be bothered. Um, I'm not saying that they'd bother me, but just sometimes I just don't like, they keep such track of us.
right.
Um, and I get out there and I go to this one place just off the blue, just never been there before. And I pick out, there was nobody there, which was really odd. And there was only 6 spots there. And I picked the sixth one because it was farthest away from the other. If anybody else showed up, I'd be pretty far. And I get out and I walk over and I put everything down on the camping on the picnic table. And I look and there's this little army guy sitting there. I mean, not even just laying there on the ground or anywhere. It's sitting right on the picnic table. And it was just like, okay. So maybe, we're not as all sneaky as we think we are sometimes.
Well, see, and that's another thing that to me, it's like, if you were to tell that to someone, you know, that's not aware like we are, they would be like, oh, a kid probably left it there and write it off and be like, yeah. But it's like, our mind is like, wait a minute, that shouldn't be here. And
Yeah,
we start to question this little toy that everybody else is like, yeah, somebody left it by
nothing.
mistake.
Well, they left it sitting up. And chances are nobody was there since the 4th of July. So it's been sitting there, standing there through wind, rain for a week. Okay. It's not heavy. It's not one of those metal ones. It's just a little plastic one that you get, when you go to the grocery store and you beg your mom for please a toy. I mean, they're really small. I mean, and it was so lightweight. I mean, a heavy wind would have knocked it over, but why was it just sitting there? So,
Right.
yeah. It's things like that, where um I know for a fact if I'm not allowed to go somewhere, they will do something. I mean, I was trying to make it to Colorado one weekend and I drove my car. I was almost from Minneapolis and my engine just blew and there was nothing wrong with my car. But it was just like, no, you're not going. And it was really weird because it was like that weekend I ended up um co-hosting for another YouTuber um that weekend and meeting somebody that had information that I needed that I had been looking for. So, and it very strange things, if I'm allowed to go somewhere, but if I try to stay there and not come back to where I'm supposed to be, because I feel like I'm tethered to this one spot, they'll make it impossible for me to stay. I mean, impossible. So I know that there is some sort of, you know, I guess it would be cattle prodding us to certain places, and back. That's what I felt like the last 5 years, like not allowed to leave. I can go for a vacation or for a visit, but I'm not allowed to like move. It's very it's very weird.
Oh, I get that sometimes. I get that feeling like I'll be like, I feel like it's time for a change. And they're like, yeah, we're going to change this, but not this. This is not allowed.
That is exactly how it goes with these guys.
Yeah. We're actually at the hour. Do you have time to stick around for a little bit more or do you need to go?
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. So, one thing I wanted to ask, and I'm curious about because there's a distinction, and I just want to make sure I'm clear on the distinction. Is
Hmm.
you mentioned in your bio MILABS and SSP, and I know the secret program has many facets, many programs within the program. And MILABS, when I was in my early state of doing the show, I said to somebody, "What is a MILAB?" Because I'm thinking like some really big term, and they're like, "It's military." And I was like, "Oh,
Military abductions.
yeah." I was like, I felt so like, cut. That's so obvious. Why did I feel so stupid asking this question now, but
No, never feel that way. The only stupid question is the one that's never asked. Seriously.
I've said that myself. But my question to you is, with your experience in both, do you feel like the military is like more precise programming or more precise like directives than the program itself, like a separate entity that works alongside of? Or do you think it's still within the program and it's just instead of the aliens, it's our military?
Oh, I think the two work definitely hand in hand. You can't find one without the other because they coexist together. You have one specific race that has the technology, and you have the other specific race that has unlimited subjects for, experimentation, study, anything like that, research. So, I mean, they just kind of go together. I mean, if you're going to ask me, do I have any specific memories of any type of aliens and working with aliens? No, I don't. I see what they do when they don't want you to remember it. They'll go in and almost digitally erase just a certain thing, but you can maintain the whole memory, but you don't see the certain uh alien that's standing there. Like what happened to me when I was 3, my sister saw it. And I obviously saw it, but in recalling the memory and pulling it up, it's like it's digitally erased. um so that they do that with people that see things. Like one person will recall it, the other will not. So that the one person will say, well, when we saw this and we saw that flying saucer and that alien come out, and people, and the ones that were there, like, what? No, I don't remember that. I mean,
Yeah.
and it makes the other person that did see it feel like they're going crazy. I mean, there are certain things that they do, why they do the things they do, I should say.
Right. And I was talking with someone about that and going, why, some people remember some things and others remember other things, but they don't, we never fully unlock everything. And he gave me a really good like answer that it's like my brain was like able to go, okay, that makes sense. I'm not going to question this anymore, and I'll be grateful for what I get. But and I understand now why I'm not getting this part. But at the same time, though, it's kind of, to me, I get a little frustrated when I hear people going like, "Oh, I meditated and I got this and I got that and I remembered this and that," and I'm like, I did so many meditations as a kid and I got squat.
I think you have to. This is what I do. I go into my meditation with a clear question. And it's the same thing too when I do psilocybin. I go into it with a clear question. I'm not going into it for visuals or for fun or, recreational use. I go into it because I'm researching. I'm doing the work. And I always have my question, and sometimes it gets answered right away, and then I got like 6 hours dealing with the rest of the trip. But I'm not going to say like every single time I'm successful. It's like when you're least expecting it, and then I'll have someone, hey, I mean, they don't go, hey, you need to go meditate. It's almost like they just kind of shove that idea into my head, and I'm like, I gotta go meditate. I'm expecting information. I mean, and I'm not disappointed. I do get the information.
Mm.
I also have like a lot of recalls of a lot of different types of vessels, and I've always had mad memories of like flying, and it was like the one thing that I think it was like me and another person that was on the show recently, we were talking about the chair in Montauk, and I said we both agreed it was reverse engineered from an actual pilot chair from a UFO. They had reverse engineered it, and they were trying to use it for their own, to be able to open up, and create things and do other things too. They were hoping that it would serve their purpose, is what they really wanted more than anything.
All right.
But just, I have all these memories of flying, and I remember I went and checked out this guy. He was going to teach me how to fly. I got into this Cessna, and and he just showed me just the quick steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and he goes, did you catch any of that? And I said, I think so. And I was like, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this. And he goes, yeah. And I was like, maybe in a former life I flew planes. I mean, I know I did, but that's what I had to tell him, because I didn't want to go, yeah, I have full memory of that. You can hop out, I'll take off. I was
Yeah.
gonna do that.
What's interesting too is like I'll get in my car and like I'll be on a trip or going somewhere, and all of a sudden I'll catch myself going like this and like punching like buttons on the car that don't exist, or being like, hey, let's program a route. And I'm like, I literally see myself like entering code into a keypad that's not there. But the one that really got my attention, and a friend of mine was commenting, he was talking to someone who was in the programs listening to their show, and they were commenting their hand, because everything moves by hand. And I was like, I never paid attention. But after he told me this, I was watching, and my hand would tilt forward to go faster, would tilt back to slow down. If I was turning, my hand would turn the direction I wanted the car to go. And I was like, my hand is actually directing the car as if it was a shuttle or a plane.
That is one of the recalls that I have, was like mile long ship, just 15-20 mile long ship, and having to be put into this chair. It was a lot like, and I'm how I am about water. I got on this boat when I was in Idaho, boating, and went out on freight vacation, and they put me in the back of this like inflatable, looked like a couch, weird thing that it was. I'd never been in that before, and they said, we're going to swing you around the lake, and the you have to stay in it. You can't, otherwise you'll flip. Well, I was watching everybody else in it, and they were flipping off. I was like, that's not going to happen to me. So I get into it, and it was just me. And they were like, don't put your arms in the straps, because if it jerks this way, you could dislocate your shoulder. And I was like, all right. So I just put my hands in it, and I'm like, it was almost like I had to use like my intuition and how my body was moving to be able to steer it. And it was a lot like the chair. It was like any little movement with the ship, I would readjust it just with my thoughts, and it would readjust. So it was like I was part of the ship. It was like I was the ship was sentient and we were communicating to each other. And that was one of the reasons why they really wanted a lot of the indigenous in the program, was because we were able to communicate a lot with this tech really easy. um I think it was a friend of mine had been out in the woods in northern um Minnesota, and where they suspect where the underground base was, they found a tablet. And somebody had brought it to where they were all kind of just hanging out, chilling. And was, hey, I found this tablet out in the woods. Really weird. But anyway, I found this tablet. And, you know, you gave me $30 for it. So I can go get, a pack of cigarettes or whatever, a couple of 40s, something. And they were like, okay, cool. So anyway, they got the tablet and they're looking at it and they're flipping it around and they can't find any buttons on it. And how it looks just like one of those cheap tablets that you get from, from Wally World or anything. It's just, it's not anything special. There's no brand or anything on the back or the front. There's not even any buttons to turn it on. And I told my friend, I said, you knew how to turn it on, right? And he goes, no. And it was like, you gotta talk to it. You gotta communicate with it to turn it on. But they eventually ended up taking the back of it off and somehow got the back off. And when they looked inside of it, they realized that everything wasn't like circuits or any types of chips or anything like that. It was almost like it was biological, like it was neural. So it was like a lot of little tiny filaments and everything, like an actual biological thinking brain. So that was I don't know what they ever did with it or what happened or who had it or if they ever got rid of it, but yeah, that was I thought that was an interesting little tidbit that they had found out in the woods, middle of nowhere.
And I want to ask you about something, going back to like the car and having those bleed through moments like piloting. Every once in a while, I will see myself and going like, okay, things are getting a little iffy, traffic wise. There's a lot of different energies. And all of a sudden I'll go, okay. And it's like I put on a helmet and I'll go like this. And it's like, that's the communications. And sometimes I'll go like this to flip up and being like, no, I don't want the auto visor down. I want it up. And I'm like, have you ever experienced anything like that where you had to activate the communication that way or anything like that?
I think I went to there was this it was like what do you call those headsets, like those AR headsets or whatever. The kids all play with them anyway. So we went and we were like, I had this headset on and we were playing different games, but basically anywhere that I looked, I could look at whatever a menu option I wanted and then just blink once and it would click on it. That's what I remember, is like having this completely cover my face, and leaving, an area here open if I wanted it. And then I could look, it's almost like a screen inside of it. And I could look at something and just like blink, and that would be almost like the mouse clicking on it. So that's kind of like the same thing a little bit, but a little bit different. But it was like inside. Yeah. And I remember there was like some sort of I had, was it on this side? I can't remember. There was like an implant kind of behind my ear. And even sometimes bothers me. Like some of the implants that I have kind of bother me. I have one in my arm that tends to move a lot, but it's I can feel it. And if I have anybody else try to feel it, it disappears. It just goes bye-bye. So Yeah, that's all that I can really remember on that.
Yeah, but it's interesting you talk about behind the ears because I remember a couple of times I was on a long trip and I was like, and I heard myself say to myself, enough of this neural link. And I actually reached behind my ear, like to the back of the head, and envisioned myself pulling something off and being like, okay, now I'm good. And it's like, well, where did that come from?
There is something that I don't know if anybody else has it. I know I was talking to David Morrow about it when he was on the show. Um, on the back of my head, like probably maybe about uh, a quarter of an inch from my hairline, where there's like some baby hairs and stuff, but there's like two bald spots on the back, like right underneath my hairline, and you can feel like it's completely soft baby bald, like somebody shaved it. And then there's like little tiny stubbles, and they get bigger and bigger and longer, and then they turn into the baby hairs. But it's like something back here, like it sits, either I sit in the chair and it's like right there, and that's how it connects everything, or it's something that they do to us. But
Yeah,
it's like it's completely, I have absolutely no hair back there. Two little bald spots. And I've had them for a very long time.
yeah. Mine, it feels like there's like a little ridge, like it goes up and then out and then back in and up,
Like
but
right
it
in the
doesn't
back.
go straight across on the back of the head. Well, actually, yeah, it does go straight across the back.
Yeah, I have that too. But you'll see that some people a
But yeah,
couple of us that are like higher in reptilian DNA, well, that ridge back there is a little bit different than everybody else's. Like I'll see other people and they can hold a headband on theirs, but mine is not like that. It's like
no.
completely poop.
Yeah, mine. I've tried it. It just flips up, and I'm like, forget it.
Right?
I'll just wear it on the top, and they're like, it's supposed to go. I'm like, don't even go there.
I know I have like this visor and I don't have that quite area to catch it, and it just falls off my head and I'm just like, forget it. That's just the way my head is made. I don't know why they made me so weird, but they
Yeah,
made me
and
the female version of my father.
yeah, and I'm like, when I look at like images of like skulls and everything, how the jaws this smooth line across, and there's everything. I'm like, I have enough bone sticking out of my chin
Yeah.
that I can literally pull my mouth open. And I'm like, but then I look at images of the skulls and I'm like, this is not on any skull image I've ever seen. I'm like, where is this? Where does this come from? And everyone's like, it's just natural. I'm like, I don't think so. It's like the back of my mind is like, if it was natural, where is it on these skulls?
So weird because I have like pictures of my altars and every single one of them has this dimple in the chin. And I noticed that I sit there and I do the same thing that one of my altars does. Is she puts her finger in the dimple and then kind of pulls the skin around it and then just kind of rubs it. But I don't have that. I don't have that little dimple in my chin. But like almost every single one of my altars does. So I don't know what the heck is up with that.
Yeah, and talking about the altars, I was actually told that and the when I asked somebody this question, they were like, "You're the first person I've ever heard ask this question." And my question to them was, when the government is done, or whoever is using the altar is done with it, and it's killed, recycled, and made anew, what happens to the family of that altar? Do they get destroyed or do they live on? What happens to them? And they actually were like, had to sit back and go, I don't know. I don't know what happens to the family.
I think they have to keep with the whole deception of this person is a real person and this life is their life and these people are part of their life. And it would be just like somebody, who passes away, and they're gone, and then everybody else has to just deal with, moving forward without them. So I think that's what it is. It was like, I think the last time that I actually took psilocybin, someone, whoever was dropping me information, said that there was approximately 100. There was 100 original super soldiers, and that, like, altars. Some of them they could get, you know, uh, a couple thousand, and then there are some that they could only get, you know, a very small amount. Like mine, I know everybody else has way more than I do. And I was like, why don't, I mean, I'm not saying I want more. I'm just saying, why so little? Why is my number smaller than what others, have? And one of the things that, one of my siblings or one of my family members that's in the program said was that there was one of my abilities is my strength to be able to protect myself. And they have to be able, to traumatize you and torture you to be able to fragment the into altars, into all these, I call them fragments, altars, splints, whatever you want to call them. But they weren't able to do that with me because of how strong of a person I was, even at a very young age. So they did something totally different with me and had me trust somebody. And then that person that I trusted, was able to turn on me and be able to get whatever fragments that they wanted. So that's kind of how it worked out with me. But yeah, there was originally only 100 actual immortals, or whatever you want to call them. Um, no, I wouldn't call them all created. Some of them weren't created. Some were. I've actually seen an infinity symbol on somebody that I suspected was in the program. And then when I went and I spoke to a psychic that was, also in the program, they said it was the mark of whoever created that clone body. They put their marks on them so that, they like an artist's signature.
And it's interesting how you comment, you don't necessarily feel like they're altars or different as different somehow. And I've started viewing mine as, because growing up metaphysical, my mind translates things to, alternate timelines. I can wrap my head around that easier than there's a cloned version of me running around somewhere. And so I've started looking at it and going, okay, to make sense of this, okay, what timeline am I remembering? Which, version of me is this? Which time? And so it's like my mind puts it into timelines versus an alter just being out there doing something.
Hmm. Well, we do have some that are in, our actual, I guess it would be considered timeline reality. So someone had asked me about time, and this person was hoping, just because they were so unhappy with everything, they were wanting to go back in time to a specific time and see if they could pinpoint that area and stay there. And I was like, well, you have to stop thinking of it as going back and going forward, because time is not linear. We're not set on a scale and you can move it back and forward representing time. Time is like a stream, like many streams, and you would be able to hop a certain stream and go to a certain time, because
right now at this moment in time, X marks the spot. The past, the present, and the future is all occurring right now. So I mean, I think that the reason why that they created time was to help understand it better. But I think it just needs to go back to not being a time.
Right. And I think one of the things that gets me with the altars and everything is I have such ingrained in me like the code, like chivalrous code, and all of that's where it's like I'm like 1-to-1 in relationships, and I started thinking about it one day because being single and not ever really finding the right person yet, and I was wondering, going, how can it be on a planet of billions of people I haven't really connected truly like on this level? And then I was thinking, going, well, but I find myself talking about family, and but it's not the family I have. So is it not that I'm not connecting with my timelines? It's just not in the same way as other people. And in my mind, I'm like, hey, on this timeline, I'm married, have a family. So if I have a family over here, am I cheating on that timeline? And it's like, that makes me a horrible person. And I'm
No.
like, but these are different timelines. And it's like, oh man, my head just starts hurting.
I think that's when they actually created a sentence, what you don't know doesn't hurt you.
Yeah.
It's when you know, that's when you have to sit there and think, okay, two things, now I am aware of it. Is it still cheating? You know. So I think I've looked at it at and being able to get, like, we're only here because time is such a weird concept, and it's very different off this planet. We're only here. I think I kind of theorized. So for one day is a decade. So we're only here from, what is it, 5 to 9 days. It's just the way it runs. It just feels like
Yeah.
it's in slow mo. But yeah, no, technically, we're not here for very long. And I think I had a couple of people that have asked me, I mean, am I ever going to meet, you know, the one for me? I mean, it's just like, if you don't, is it, are you going to be disappointed? Because, I mean, you came here for a specific moment in time to complete or do something. And that might not include being in a relationship, and for that we're only here for 5 to 9 days. I mean, is it that big of a deal? I mean, I guess probably because I've been married a couple of times. I look at it as, you know, getting to know the one person that I've never been in a relationship with is myself, and getting to know myself better. Um and I didn't look at it as being alone once I realized, how absolutely crazy, insane, and fun person I getting to know you, because you're always with you. So I don't know. And then I just kind of kicked off a lot of the shadow work, a lot of the healing, going backwards, working through, my timeline and my trauma timeline back to when I was a child. And I did all of that before I even realized I was in any of these programs. So I kind of came into it about as healed as I could get, considering what kind of family that I was dropped into. Yeah.
And I've been famous for telling people, like, they'll go, yeah, I'm trying to get into your head to understand things, how you think about things and everything. And I'm like, Yeah, be careful up there because even I don't go up there.
Yeah, it's almost like you rewired. We did a little rewiring, and you think a little bit different
Yeah,
than
and
most people do.
now when I think about it too, is like when people go, "Well, aren't you lonely being by yourself?" And I'm like, I'm not really by myself. I have alternate timelines of myself to talk to, so I'm never alone. It's like I have guides, loved ones around me, myself and other timelines to talk to now.
I know. I have like animal guides, and sometimes when I see them, like sometimes it'll be the bee, or sometimes it'll be a wolf, or sometimes it's a bear, or it's an eagle. Um, yeah, and then I also have animals of my own, and I've been trying to communicate, you know, telepathically. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I'm not trying to be an animal whisperer. I feel like I have a lot more in common with my furry friends than I do with my own humans. I
Oh
try.
yeah,
I try.
oh yeah. There are many days when I'm like, I can understand my little furry dogs more than I can understand what half the people on this planet are doing and talking about. And I'm like, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go talk to him. He makes more sense.
Well, how long have you been doing this, Michael? How long have you had your show?
So this show I've had since August of last year.
Okay.
I'm not
That
even a full year yet. Almost.
I'm almost at a full year too for mine. I think we celebrate. I went back in my first actual show that I dropped, episode 1, which was the SSP Roundtable. I dropped it on August 16th of last year. So that's
Ooh,
what I'm kind of going with our first anniversary date is August 16th. Um,
I
I
actually
wanted to,
beat you by 6 days. I was August
wow,
10th.
August 10th. Yeah, I actually have quite a few. Is it? No. So I do have an anniversary guest that I booked for in celebration of our first year anniversary. I got to get the person's promotional pictures first before I can drop any names. I was hoping I would get them today, but I didn't. So um
Right. I know how that is.
I'm so excited though. I am totally excited
Yeah.
about it. It's going
And
to be a great one.
actually, the ironic thing is my guest next week was my very first guest,
Oh, who may I ask who?
Brad Olson.
Oh my gosh, I had Brad on just a couple of weeks ago.
And
Yeah.
it was so funny. When we first started the show, when I introduced him, he goes #1 on the first episode, and I went on a friend's podcast show, and it was their first live, and they're like, "Yeah, we're trying our first live," and I said, "Okay, my friend that did this on my show, I'm gonna do this in honor of you," and I go, "First live."
He came on and I was teasing him. I was calling him the most interesting man in the world. So
Yeah.
that's what I introduced him as, and then when we were exiting the show, I was hoping I would catch, and I left him a little meme on his, his Facebook. I enjoy him very much.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Mhm. So, yeah, we are celebrating our first. One of the things that we do, it's declassified, so it is disclosure. But I also do like spirituality. People, I have people on that are like tarot readers, a psychic, mediums, channelers. I also have people that are, military, people that are in the SSP, people that have gone through like alien abductions. I have a doctor coming on this weekend who deals with trauma in alien abduction. So that's going to be really exciting. I just love it. I do. I mean, I'm not in this for the money, so I don't make a whole, I don't make a bunch of money. It's basically a hobby for me. It's something that I love to do. So, I started out co-hosting, and then moving into host was very effortless for me. So, um, I don't know. I guess I have that nervous quality where I talk and laugh a lot. I don't know.
I think it's great, actually.
Just natives and indigenous are just we love to laugh, we love to joke. We're always joshing around, and I'm not saying that we have our moments of being stoic and silent, but most of the time, as I remember growing up, was a lot of laughter in the family.
Oh, that's great. And yeah, that's one of the things I like about watching your show is just the uniqueness and authenticness of it. That, yeah, I mean, we tried our best as hosts to be professional and dignified, and there are moments where it's like you just gotta cut loose, and it's like people see it and they gravitate to it when you can pull it off at the right time and the right moment.
I think it was one of them was with Stephen Popiotek, and I happened to like either take a drink or something, and I choked. And I remember I was like, I'm gonna have to have my IT guy like take that out, and Stephen's like, just leave it in. He's like, people. He goes, and then maybe he goes after like a couple of years, have like these accumulated bloopers, and show them. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so embarrassing, but it's funny because I laughed so hard afterwards. Like they had done an upgrade to Zoom, and I had my computer must have just upgraded, and I couldn't find the stop record button. So I was like going on for like 2 minutes with my mouth open looking for it. It was so funny. And I was like, I told my IT guys to just leave it in there, embarrassing as it is. I mean, that's who I am. And I don't want, I don't want to erase, and you're never going to see me with filters on my Rumble account. I guess I'm pretty happy, because I will truthfully say that I am 51 years old, and I think
No way.
yes, and I think that they probably regressed me so much that my whole DNA is whacked out, because I have no idea. I don't look my age. I wish I did. I keep waiting for some sort of gray hair to come in. Just like Rogue or something, really cool. But
if you wanted to, you could get a streak put in.
I know, but then I'd have to maintain it, and I wanted to be natural. I wanted to have.
It may start it. You never know. It could be, putting that streak in, maybe the hair.
Maybe my brother said that. He's like, you know what? He goes, I keep seeing you with like this gray streak, and it's going to be coming in soon. And it was just like, yes, I'm waiting for it. My older sisters were giving me grief because they're like, you dye your hair, so nobody knows if you're gray or not. I said, I haven't dyed my hair in years. If anything, I lightened just like little bits of it, but I mean, it's still the same color.
It's so funny how you and I are opposites. I turned 28 and started getting gray hairs, and I go to my stylist going, what color are we doing? Because I'm way too young to have gray hair.
I'm still waiting. I mean, I see a shiny hair and I think it's white. I'm just like, yes. Oh, no, it's not. But I'm serious. I keep waiting. I just saw this lady. She stopped dyeing her hair. Her hair was coming in white, and she must have dyed it black. And the tips were black. And I was like, that looks so cool. I want to do that. But it's just, it's not. My dad was... how old was my dad? My dad was 83 when he passed away, and he barely had any gray hair. So I think, he was in the program too, but it's something to do with whatever it is. And when they regress you back to that age, it has to mess with your DNA. So then you age slower, because, you know, I,
Yeah.
all
Well,
my friends are all great. I'm so jealous.
my nephew really gave me the shock of my time when I think I was 27, 28, and I picked him up, and I was like one of the first times really talking with him where we were at the time. And I said to him, and I kid you not, this is literally what he said. I was like, "So, how old do you really think I am?" And you're expecting a kid to throw a number out there. So I'm all set, for a number. You know what he said? You're ancient. I was like, oh my God, where do I go in life from here? I went from teenager to a young adult to ancient.
That's okay. My son, I remember my son. No, he's my Marine. He got out of the Marine service not too long ago. But he was he goes, Mom. He goes, I am doing this report for school, and I need you to help me. And I said, okay, what do you need me to help? He said, I need you to be totally serious. He's like, tell me exactly what the dinosaurs were like. I was like, wow. I told him, I was like, you need to go ask Grandma. So I sent him over to ask my mom. It was like, but kids, they just say the craziest things. You never know what they're going to say.
No, what's funny though about us being who we are, if they had said that to us and being today, we would have been like, oh, well, they were walking around on two legs. The four-legged thing is not necessarily true on this. And they had a tail for balance. And be like describing the reptilians.
Hell yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, here's your dinosaurs, kid.
Yeah, I'm led to believe that, what we're finding are dragon bones. We're not finding dinosaurs. We're finding dragons.
Well, they're saying like the raptors we all thought were scale, and skin actually had feathers.
Oh yeah, because a lot of the birds are like the old, they're DNA from the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I had this weird recall. This was probably maybe last fall. And I'm like in this room, and I just happened to look over, and there's this white dragon. And it was really weird because it was almost like a cat dragon. It had like these little paws, and it was like, how cats kind of sit like a cat loaf. Well, it was like a dragon loaf, and it was like sitting there, and it had white, pure white, and it was almost like it was like a really pretty sheen to it, and the scales were kind of sticking up, and they would almost move like in the almost like an AI type fashion, but it wasn't an AI dragon. It was a dragon. I couldn't believe it. I look over, and it's smiling at me, and I guess most people would have been terrified because it was kind of scary smile. But I did not get any animosity or any where it wanted to hurt me in any way. If anything, it looked really happy to see me. And then it said two words to me, but it wasn't like it mouth moved. It was like it communicated with me telepathically. And I was like, oh, really? And, I was kind of looking around it to see. And that's when I woke up, and I was like, I remember this. I remember exactly what it looked like. And that was the dinosaur. I keep saying dinosaur now. Stop it. That was the dragon that you have on the promo, the white dragon. Yeah. So that was my dragon. I don't know why I feel like that dragon and I know each other and trust each other and love each other. So
no, and what's amazing is I have, and when we were talking about it, and you were like, this is going to sound strange to you. And I was like, I remember saying to you, no, it doesn't sound strange to me. And the reason is like, I remember one trip going to my great aunt's, and she lives kind of in the country area, or she did. And so there was always this one stretch of highway, and it was late at night, and there's no lights on it whatsoever. pitch black. And I remember we were driving, and I think it was my mom, if memory serves right, goes, I'm starting to feel uneasy. What, maybe we should pull over or do something. Or she looked at me and she's like, can you do anything to help, protect the car or anything? And I was like, I already got you covered. And all of a sudden, it's like I visioned and felt a dragon come down, land on the top of the car, and just like rode with us the entire way. And feeling like this dragon has got to be having the best day of his life, sitting there going, I don't have to exercise my wings, and I'm getting all the breeze.
Yes, and if he would have had another car there, it would have been like roller skates for him, probably.
Yeah. But yeah, and what was funny is Drago Reed and we were talking about the never-ending story for a little bit on our episode. And when you originally said to me, oh, I saw this white dragon, my mind goes, oh man, if she's got Felcor, I'm going to be so jealous.
No, he wasn't like a dog. Somebody that I had told this to said that there was like two different kinds of dragons that they knew of. One was like a serpent, and the other was, and she's like, that's so weird that you said that, like it was cat loaf. She said the other kind is like a cat. And I was like, it was just like my cat, the way my cat likes to sit with the paws underneath, and all you see are the tops of the paws sticking out. That's all you saw was the tops of the claws sticking out from underneath this dragon. And the wings, it wasn't like attached to the arms. The wings were separate, and they were just kind of tucked back. Like this dragon was trying to make itself as small and what's the word? Not very aggressive, but it was like, trying to look very sweet and nice. I was trying not to scare me, but I wasn't scared.
Friendly.
Mm-hmm. And then I had another. I think I woke up about a couple months later, and I had recalls of these two dragons, and I had written it down. And on my notebook, it had two dragons, and it had Cartier boxes filled with meat. So there were these blue Cartier boxes, and they were given as like offerings to these two dragons. And for some reason, I was taking the tops off of them, but I took the top off, and it was like a European badger that was in there and had been steamed and placed inside that box so that the dragons could eat it, so that it was nice and steamed and in a pretty little box.
To go. They got their meal to go just like we do.
I have such weird dreams, I swear. Well, I don't think they're dreams. I think, what my medicine man said is that every night when we go to sleep, we leave our bodies. And he was telling me, he said, you're what did he call it? Like a dream walker. And he was like, you need to put your medicine bag, on you, like tuck it into your shirt or whatever, or pin it to the inside of your pajama top. He's like, because it has to stay as close to you as possible, because when you leave your body at night, there are things that want to jump into your body and take over. And he's like, and you have to be very careful. So I think it was last December I left. I went, there was like I was talking to Susan Long. This is so funny. And she noticed in the video that I was telling her, I was like, this is a weird area in my bedroom. And I was kind of showing her, and she was like, there's a portal there. Well, we took all kinds of weird pictures and contrasted it. And sure enough, it was a portal. But that night I went through it, got sucked through it. And then I was flying around the city that I live in. And then I was like, oh man, I need to get back, because what if somebody wakes up and finds me gone or something, So I flew back. But I've I've flown around the town that I live in quite a few times, and even before I realized, where anything was, I was seeing signs and then finding it again when I was awake. So I know that they weren't dreams. I was actually flying around. And I don't know if I was flying without a body or if I was just subconsciously, my essence was flying around, or if I actually had a body or what, but it was like during the day or early in the mornings. And
Yeah.
I walked right through. I lived on the 3rd floor, and it was a brick building, and I got up. I remember getting up. I had just moved into that apartment because my mattress was on the floor. I got up off the floor. I walked over to to the wall, and I walked right through that wall. And it was like a weird, almost like a weird frequency. I could hear it, like when I was going through, and it wasn't like I was just walking through a curtain. It was almost like I had to concentrate really hard to walk through that brick wall. And then I just flew away. And so the next day I went outside and I was looking up at where I would have walked out. There was no patio, there was no porch, there was nothing for me to walk out on. So I did just walk out and fly away.
It's funny you say that about sleeping, because when I would travel with my exes or their families, I would pull my ex aside and go, okay, this is going to sound totally strange, but when I'm asleep, do not wake me up, because it'll hurt and I'll be freaking out for a split second and I don't know what I'll say. But just understand, because I travel at night, don't wake me up because I don't want to slam in my body. And then, of course, they all look at me like, what the hell are you talking about? But it's that
I know
is
exactly what you mean.
Hardest conversations to have, because you're being all serious and they're looking at you like, this is hilarious. And I'm like, it's not.
No, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, the first time that I was actually experiencing out of body, where I would wake up and I would be on the ceiling, pushing away from the ceiling, scared. I'm like, how did I get up here and how do I get down? And then I would just it was almost like it would be snap. And then I would be like on the bed and it would be daytime or morning or whatever. But I was noticing, it was only happening when I was in my bedroom. So I slept in the guest bedroom and it started happening there. So I slept out on the couch and I was sleeping curled up facing the back of the couch. So my back was facing out from the front of the couch. And I have this weird dream. I think it's a dream. And there's this black mist around me. And I'm like walking through the house and I'm kind of gliding. And I'm gliding through the house and I go through the kitchen and I turn. And as I turn right into the living room and I see myself laying on the couch with my back, kind of curled up. It was a love seat. So I was like really small, curled up there. And as soon as I saw my body, it was like someone just yanked me as hard as possible. And I just flew across the room and I hit my body and I woke up. And I was like, oh my God, I just saw myself. I was so freaked out. I went and got in my car and drove across town. I was like, I'm never sleeping again. But yeah, I figured out what was happening after that. And then it became a lot easier to be able to go places. And I would find myself leaving my body and going up in flying with eagles, looking down and seeing all these walleye in the lake going in the same direction that this line of eagles and I are flying in. And it's beautiful. It's very freeing. And I enjoy flying. I mean, I don't think, I think everybody can fly. I'm not going to sit there and say that I'm special, because I've heard other people can do it too. I think everybody's capable of it. I think everybody's capable of healing other people, capable of healing themselves. It's just kind of like I'm here to just kind of help nudge it. And I do have a Reiki business. It's on Facebook. It's called Rising Spirit. I think it's like hooked onto my Facebook. So if you go into my Facebook, you're going to see Eve Howard. You'll see me wearing, my headphones, my podcast headphones. And there's going to be all kinds of links, for my TikTok, for Instagram, Rumble account, Rising Spirit Reiki. I also have it on Instagram as well. I do heal. I just, I think I've been just focusing on the podcast more for like the last year. I would like to be able to enlarge my client base, because I do so much, and I help people that that are dealing with PTSD or borderline personality disorder, which is also trauma based, and working with vets and working with people that are in the SSP and helping them to be able to heal. I've worked with animals. A lot of people have come to me for their dogs, for helping them heal. I had one targeted individual that was, the dog was also suffering from some sort of almost like a radiation type. So, I mean, I had to work with the dog and heal the dog from whatever it was that the person was going through, and it was affecting, their domestic pet. So, I mean, I work with children. I worked with my own as well too. I had anxiety. I do a lot with what I've gone through. I've had PTSD. I've had trauma. I've had anxiety. I think I was dealing with a lot of depression when I was taking antidepressants, and when I stopped taking all types, I'm not on any type of prescriptions or anything, and I realized I was like way healthier. I mean, I have really low blood pressure normally. My body temperature is right around 95.9, 96. I don't know why it's so low, but doctor says I'm like hypothermia. I'm like, no, I feel fine.
It's interesting you say that, because my normal temperature is like 99, 100. It's like I'm not at 98.6 either. I feel sick at 98.6.
Oh, if I'm running a fever, if I'm at 99, I'm sick. I just really run really low temperature and really low blood pressure. I started noticing that probably about 8 years ago. So I think I quit drinking in probably it'll be about 9 years now. Oh, wow. Has it been 9 years? Yeah, 9 years. And I think that alcohol and drug use could be considered some people self-medicate, and
Yeah.
and there are some people that just have all these memories like what we had, and they don't know that they're involved in any of these programs or were suffering from trauma from being part of it. So I guess that's probably why I'm willing to like have anybody contact me if they have questions, if they need help. I was out, I think it was right around the time that we met. There was this one lady, and I just kept looking at her picture, and we weren't friends or anything, and I'm like, you know what? It was like my guide just kind of pushed me. Talk to her. So I said, okay. I have a really hard time. I'm really shy. I know that's really dumb to say considering I'm my own podcast, but it's like different.
I'm the same way, actually.
I'm like super shy. And I was like, hi. I was like, my guide wants me to say hi. I said that you have a really beautiful story to tell me, and that, we need to talk. And she ended up being a guest on the show. And one of the things, I wish I could remember right off the top of the head. I think it was episode 42, in the 40s. But she had had an attachment just a beautiful person, beautiful person. Just like a very natural psychic, very natural everything. And when people are like that and they just don't how to protect themselves from any type of dark attachments or energies or any type of anything, we've worked in the paranormal, what's out there.
Oh yeah.
and and it had attached herself since the age of 5, and we were able to unattach it, and it was pissed. It was mad. It was throwing stuff around in my bathroom, and I wasn't even there. They were. I had sent a friend of mine who was a demonologist who had studied demonology, in to try and alleviate the situation and give her some peace. And and then we started to have to teach her how to place up shielding and to protect herself, and was like, you're almost like this little 2-year-old girl, with blonde curls, skipping around, and there are so many icky things out there, you have to protect yourself. Yeah, so
We're definitely gonna have you back for an episode 2.
Oh, thank you. You honor me, you really do. I really appreciate this. This has been an amazing experience for me. And I've been on quite a few shows, and I have to say this one definitely, feels more to me, just very natural. Like we've met before, and I don't think we have other than tonight. So
No, tonight was our first meeting.
That's right.
Like face to face, so to speak.
And then you're going to have to come on my show.
Anytime. I'll be happy to.
That's funny. Okay. Well, what else did you want to talk about? Do you have any questions for me or anything?
Well, actually, if you can believe it, we have been live for 2 hours.
I see that. Doesn't feel like it.
No, it doesn't. I was like looking at it going, there's no way it's been 2 hours. Wow. But we'll definitely have to get you back on and everything. And it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you on as well. And thank you for what you do.
Of course. I'm just thankful for all the people that I've come in contact with that have offered a piece of themselves, so that we can put the puzzle together. And that's what we're all here for. I mean, there are some people that are not true, and they're just here to sell a story, but you can't put too much stock into people like that. They've watched every single episode of everybody else talking about their and it makes me sad because this I don't, my story is free. I want to be able to tell my story because I want it to be able to have other people that say, I've had weird things that have happened to me my whole life. And, and that's how I started. There was just so many things that were just unexplainable. And
it's interesting you say that because I warned you about this backstage before we started, and here's another one of those moments. In transparency to everyone watching this, I had actually said that to her before we came on the show, that I saw her show, read her bio, and was like, I needed you to come on my show to share your story. And then to hear you say you enjoy being out and sharing your story is like, wow, it was so cool that I picked up on that.
Yeah, because there are most people that do podcasting, prefer to be on this side of it, and don't do shows, and I like to do them. I do. I really feel that, people have to understand that, indigenous people, they've just been used in the programs for so long, for so many years, just generations. And, I think a lot of it, they just self-medicate, drugs and alcohol. I mean, I did for many years because I was traumatized, but I had no idea why. Yeah. But once I figured it all out and started putting it together, I've had a lot of my own people come to me and ask me questions, and I have memories of serving in the military that I have no record of. So I mean, it's prevalent. It's just we've been told not to talk about so many things,
Right.
and I want to remove that and say that it's okay. It's okay to talk about some of the things that if you feel that what you're saying is helpful to other people and can heal, then by all means talk about it. And that's why I've come forward, where a lot of my own people, choose to stay silent and not say anything. I'm just hoping, more can step out at the shadows and to be able to say, yeah, I have I'm pretty sure that I've been in these programs as well.
Yeah. And also, in transparency, I would like to point out and honor you in that I reached out to you, I think it was a week ago, and was like, I have a cancellation next week. I know we had originally talked about doing it, next month. Could you be free to come on sooner? And you were like, absolutely. And I was like, this is so cool. I'm so glad you're coming on earlier and that you were free. And so, yeah, I love how the universe works and that, it worked out for everybody.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I was really looking forward to this next month. I had it in my calendar and everything, but I thought that you were mentioned you contacted me and you were like, we can do this show, and I thought, oh my God, I missed it.
I know. I remember you saying that. I was like, no.
I am so sorry.
I had a cancellation. You're like, and I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you think that you missed the episode. It's not for another month. And you were like, oh, thank God, because I didn't want to miss your show. And I was like, at that moment, I kid you not, Eve, when you texted that, I went like this. Was like, oh, she was worried she missed my show.
I know what it's like. I've had somebody before say yes, booked a date, and then I didn't hear from them. So I mean, it happens. I don't know if they just lose. I mean, I remember. I think it was I said yes, I'll be on someone's show, and then I don't know what happened, but I put my phone down when I picked it up. You know how it clears. And I was like, oh no, I didn't get the person's name. I was like, I had given him mine and my email, but I never got anything. So I'm like, did I just imagine all of that? It happens,
And what's interesting is 3 days ago, the guest that I had tonight booked on a already reschedule goes, I just got my internet back and I'm hoping I'll get it and we'll keep it. And I was like, well, don't worry about it. When it's more stable, we'll, schedule it, episode. But it's like, it's funny how the universe or people in the programs want the information out. They will make it to where there will be glitches. And so what's supposed to come, they want to come, comes. And if you start veering off and talking about subjects they don't want you to, I've noticed guest volume will start to soften and then rise up or soften. And I'm like, this isn't natural for a show. This doesn't happen on any other show.
I've noticed that, like, I think with one of our previous guests, our last guest, and she was talking about something, and then it was almost like there was like a feedback, like it was repeating, but it was like not anybody's voice. It was really weird. It was almost like taunting, and it was like, so I think myself and my host, we muted our mics to see if it was us, but it was a really weird. It was really weird. It was almost like a different person's voice repeating everything that the person was saying.
Yeah, or the person will start to glitch and like freeze up for a second, and it's like this doesn't happen any other time, so I must be hitting the topic right because somebody's paying attention.
Right? Exactly. Well, I have to work in the morning, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to take off.
Yes, I'm the same way. It's like,
I don't know if it was just me and nerves or if I was super excited to be on the show, but I woke up at like 2 o'clock this morning. I think it was like 2:45, and I could not go back to sleep. I almost thought about going into work early, and I was like, what am I thinking? So I didn't, but I'm feeling it now. I thought I would get kind of goofy and start laughing.
no, that's fine. And yeah, and you're welcome on anytime, and anytime you need a guest, I'll be happy to come on.
Awesome. All right. I think I do actually. I had to reschedule somebody, and then I never heard back from them. And I was chasing another guest, and I ended up filling that spot with somebody else for the anniversary show. But I do have another spot open. I'll talk to you about that tomorrow or something.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, thank you. And Eve, I have to say, you now have the title of my longest show on this series.
What? What do you mean?
Being over 2 hours. I don't think I have in this series gone over 2 hours.
I was like doing 2 hours, and then I was like, you know what? It gets to be too hard on my back, you know? So I started cutting them down to an hour, but now I'm seeing some of the guests are trickling over. So it happens. So again, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, Rising Spirit, or you can look up Prime Declassified. I'm on Rumble. I haven't put it anywhere else. I do have a YouTube channel, but I just don't put anything on there because, you know, you say the wrong word and it's over.
And actually, what's comical is before the show started, I normally air on X. And it was saying it couldn't connect. And I was like, well, that happened on Facebook. So I removed it, tried connecting it again. And it goes, well, you don't have the pay level on X. So we can't allow, you're not allowed to stream anymore to X. So I was like, okay, so I'm off X now for streaming shows.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy.
So,
yeah, I went to Rumble. I was going to go to Spotify. We still might download some shows onto Spotify because I do have an account there. But so far it's just Rumble because you know, everybody on my show is free to say whatever they want and, you know, swear whatever, say some of the trigger words that, you know, YouTube and Facebook don't like, and that's
Spotify hasn't said a word about my show.
Yeah, I know, that's why I was gonna try and, you know, hook it up more. I love it there, but we'll see. But anyway, thank you so much for having me, Michael. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna have to go now.
Yes. I know, as I'm famous for saying to people, we're done with the Irish goodbyes now.
I'm Scottish or partial Scottish. So
am I.
Are you?
Yep.
McDonald is my Scottish last name.
Mine was Cornyn. The red was my ancestor who Robert the Bruce nicely killed to take over guardianship of Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know.
I have no idea what my family's for.
Being guardian of Scotland, I guess I can claim Scottish heritage.
Oh. The Guardian, I like that.
Yeah. All right. Well, sweet dreams and have a wonderful night.
You too. We'll do this again.
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.